You know what you should do? You should follow me on Twitter at Brommer018. Link in the description. Do it now. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me in another video today. Hope all of you are doing well. It's Brommer18 here, and it's time for another video that's part of our FIFA 20 Custom Tactics series, the series where I show you how to recreate and adapt real life systems in FIFA 20 so that they will actually work in game. Today we switch our focus onto Zinedine Zidane's Real Madrid tactics, but in particular the system in which he played during his first tenure at the club as manager, when they won three back-to-back Champions League titles. So between 2015 and 2018. Very much a similar system in terms of what they're playing now, and also the personnel mainly. The team hasn't much changed. Of course, there is one obvious absence in Cristiano Ronaldo, which we will come on to. But generally, you know, if you are playing with Real Madrid and you want to use this system, you know, there's not too many differences that you've really got to worry about. So that's okay, but nevertheless, we are going to have a deep dive into it. Lots of people have been suggesting it. So, you know, let's have a look at it today. So first off, we are going to have a little change of the formation. It was a 4-3-3. Bear in mind, he did also used to adapt in some games to you know, maybe more like a 3-4-1-2, sometimes a 4-4-2, depending on the situations. But today I just want to focus on his 4-3-3 because I think that's going to give you the most success in FIFA. So what you want to do is you want to switch this formation to the 4-3-3 holding with the striker up front. And there's going to be a couple of position changes as well. First of all, what you want to do is you want to get the two fullbacks and you want to move them up slightly so that they then become wing backs. And if you've watched any of my previous tactics videos, you know that we do often do this because it just replicates the role of a modern fullback much more. You'll find they get wider and they get further forward, creating not only that width but that attacking intent as well. And one more thing we are going to quickly do is what you want to do is you want to actually swap Modric for Toni Kroos. I'll tell you why we swap them in a minute when we come on to sort of the player instructions. But with Modric, what you want to do is you actually want to move him up into cam. And the reason being is that Modric is the more advanced of the two. And therefore, he'd be getting into more of those pockets of space, trying to penetrate the opposition defence. Of course, most teams would get their, you know, 2 banks forward, 10, 11 men behind the ball, and just sort of be camped in their own half, in their own defensive third. And so obviously you need that attacking intent. And when you're playing with someone like Madrid, you've got Modric who can penetrate those pockets in the advanced areas, and then it helps you just progress the ball a bit more further forward than what you would if it was a flat midfield. So that's it for the positions. Now we can move on to the player instructions, and what we'll do is we'll just work our way up the pitch. So first of all, you've got Courtois. Of course, it was Keylor Navas at some point, but then they did during his tenure switch to Courtois. We can, you know, it doesn't really matter because it's the same role anyway. First of all, in terms of saving on crosses, you want him to come to crosses. It's quite hard to defend corners on this game, and crosses as well, particularly as a defender. You're facing your own goal. Therefore, if you get the keeper to come to crosses, he's going to relieve that pressure for you, but most importantly, they're fairly overpowered. They're a bit of a blanket of protection in this game. So with them coming for crosses, you'll find it's a lot easier for them to defend and therefore relieve the pressure off you. And you also want it to be a sweeper keeper as well, and that's fairly self-explanatory for a team who are, you know, possession-based like Real Madrid. Of course, they're going to have a higher line in possession, so if any team's going to try and counter-attack on you, you do have that extra layer of defence. Onto the centre-backs, you don't need to change anything here. One thing that I will mention is that when you're someone like Sergio Ramos in particular, you know, he likes to advance forward with the ball. He likes to carry it out of defence, particularly against teams who, like we talked about, are, you know, defending deep, and, you know, they're in their own defensive third. They're passive and they're not pressing you. He'll carry the ball forward and try and open up a press maybe, and try and bring people out of position to try and then release a pass onwards to someone in space. So I want you guys to try and replicate that in game and see what you can do if you are playing against a team who, like we say, are, you know, very defensive minded. So it's worth giving that a try as well. In addition, what we talk about, always interceptions, keep them on normal unless I specify otherwise. There's not too much need to switch them to aggressive, particularly because you know, you don't get much of an upside
compared to normal, but your stamina will drain, you know, a whole lot more easily. So if you keep them on normal, you know, there shouldn't be too much problem. Now we move on to the wing backs, and what you want to do with both of them, the same roles, Marcelo and Carvajal. You want attacking runs on join the attack, and you also want them on overlap as well. These are the two that will create predominantly the most amount of width in the side, and they're also there to recycle possession when things are going badly, or say, for example, like we said, you can't break down an opposition. They're defending very narrow, very compact and tight, and therefore you can get it out into those wide areas. So important to this Real Madrid team, not just in the Zidane system. Throughout the years, particularly Marcelo, who of course has been there for so many years, they've been instrumental to their attacking moves, and they've played such a key part, and that's just why, you know, these guys stay around for so long, because it's just, you know, like I say, they play an integral part of the team. So we've done the defence now and the goalkeeper. We can move on to the midfield. First of all, we'll start with Casemiro, and, you know, such an understated role in this team, particularly when, you know, during this first phase of Zidane's tenure, during, you know, 16, 17, 18, those years, you know, so important. He's the one screening the back four and offering that protection, whilst your other midfielders such as Modric, and you've got the front three, you know, really bombing on forward, as well as the fullbacks as well. So first of all, in terms of attacking support, you want to keep him on stay back while attacking. That's very self-explanatory. But then in terms of defensive behaviour, usually what we do is we go with man mark. Because I say that, you know, there's a lot of issues in this game where opposition midfielders will storm into your box and they won't be picked up by your midfielders. It's now become such a problem in this game that, you know, it doesn't offer much anyway in terms of man marking. So you actually want to try and replicate what they were doing in real life, and that is cutting passing lanes. You know, there's two different types of press, what I sort of say in terms of the defensive style, and that's a man press and a lane press. And a man press is where, whilst you're pressing, everyone else is tight to their other men to try and, you know, prevent those passing outlets. Whereas a lane press is something where, as you're pressing, you're cutting off the passing lanes. And so with someone like Casemiro cutting those passing lanes, you know, it's harder for them to try and pick out a pass, and therefore, you know, they have to go in another direction. So to try and replicate that, you might as well just go with cut passing lanes, because you don't get much upside at the moment, because obviously the game is so buggy, so glitchy, and needs to be fixed, that, you know, man mark isn't going to do a lot for you in terms of staying with opposition midfielders who are coming into the box. And in terms of defensive position, you want to keep this on cover wing. Like I say, he screens the entire back four. It's so tireless, so energetic, and so good, you know, just reading those situations, that you can cover the entirety of the back four. So if, say, for example, you're not playing this with Real Madrid, you are looking for someone with lots of energy, lots of defensive awareness, Kante is the ideal player for this role, in my opinion, and, you know, that's the sort of player you're looking for. So he should be versatile enough to go across the entire range of the back four. So next we can come on to Toni Kroos. Now, the reason why we have decided at the start to switch Toni Kroos with Modric is, you know, Toni Kroos is going to expend a lot less energy in the game. You want him really just drifting around in those central areas, not moving much at all, and just picking off passes, recycling possession, maintaining the ball. And so why we switch him is because what you'll find is when we come on to Hazard, which would have been Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, with Ronaldo, when it comes to defensive support, you don't want him on comeback all the time. You want him on balance, so he'll only come back when it's absolutely needed. Ronaldo is very much a player who, if you tell him to bed in and be that rock and trap back, etc., he will do that. You know, as much as grief as he gets for being selfish, it's not the case. He's very much a you know, guy ready to fill the role. But you want him on balance, because he's that outball, and he did that so much at Real Madrid as well. You know, you keep him forward, particularly when they blended into a 4-4-2 at times and kept him and Benzema at front. So if you keep him on balance, therefore, you want the more energetic player of these two central midfielders on his side, so that if, say, you lose a ball and the opposition are countering along that side, you've got someone like Modric who's got a little bit more energy and will cover the park a bit more in order to sort of cover for Ronaldo. Whereas Kroos, of course, you don't want him running around too much, so you put him on a side that's a little bit more secure. So, we can now come on to his roles. In terms of attacking support, stay back while attacking. He's very much the deep line playmaker type sort of player. Like I say, not running around much and not being mobile, and that's also why you'll have him on stay on the edge of the box for crosses as well, because like I say, you just want him being that pivot. He will recycle possession as well should you need to replenish the attack and go again, but most importantly, he just picks off those passes, and with everyone moving off around him, he keeps it ticking and keeps it going. In terms of defensive position, put him on cover centre as well. That's because therefore, again, less movement around. You don't want him drifting out wide much. So that's it for Toni Kroos. We can move on to Modric now. A little bit different, of course, because we did move him up to cam. And again, I'll repeat once again, the reason why we moved him up to cam is just so he'll get into those more advanced positions and those little pockets of space in between the opposition defence and midfield. And that's very much what you're looking for. In terms of defensive support, you want him on comeback on defence. Of course, you're going to try and bed in, and something that's very underrated in this system is actually Madrid's defensive sort of emphasis. Zidane is not about just you've got this selection of world-class players, and you're just trying to seize the game, but they were happy to bed in, and lots of times you'd find, particularly in games such as big ones, maybe the likes of Barcelona, etc., maybe when they played against Atletico and they were winning and got an early goal, what you'd find is they'd be happy to bed in, be narrow, be compact, and look to play in the counter. That's no problem at all. So you're going to find that with the likes of Modric as well. And you've got a workman-like player, very underrated for the amount of ground that he does cover in the game, not just for his technical ability. And in terms of support on crosses, keep this on balance. Therefore, you've got a bit of the best of both worlds, really, because you'll have the free forwards, storming into the box anyway. Usually, if someone's whipping a ball in, it's going to be one of these fullbacks, because of course you've got these aerial target men coming drifting in on the wing with the likes of Ronaldo and with the likes of Bale as well. Of course, if you're playing with Hazard, a little bit different, but then again, you've got Modric who's coming in as an extra body in that box anyway. So keep him on balance, and therefore you sort of get the best of both worlds. And that's it for Modric, really. Not too much to to do. Unfortunately, I've just reset all of these, but never mind. You get the gist of it anyway. So now we can move on to the front three. First of all, we'll come over to Bale, because Bale's is very much, of course, he was part of that team as well. So defensive support, you wanted to come back on defence, of course. They're going to set that sort of blend into a bit of a 4-4-1-1, a 4-4-2, or even a 4-5-1 in certain situations. And Bale's part of that, he will come back on defence, and he's a very workmanlike player. In terms of chance creation, you want him cutting inside. And you know what, we'll couple this with support on crosses as well. You want him getting into the box very much. He's a very similar player to Ronaldo in sort of his build and the way he plays. And you can very much get them in similar sort of situations. So if you've got him drifting inside, coming into the box, playing as like a second/third striker, but also being another aerial target in the box, that's perfect for Bale, really. That's absolutely what you need to do with him. So if you do that very much, and couple that with getting behind as well, to use that pace to penetrate the opposition defensive line when it needs it, when the game supports that role, and you've got enough space in behind to run in, you'll get that as well. So he's very much playing the role of that sort of second and third striker. On the other hand, if we move over to Ronaldo, it's very much the same. Cut inside, getting behind, and getting to the box or the cross as well. But this time, you just want this one on balanced, as we just spoke about earlier. No one in tracking back as much. Now, of course, if you're playing this with the current Real Madrid team, it's a little bit different with Hazard. And therefore, you can have him on comeback on defence should you want that extra layer of protection. If you are playing with this current Madrid team, then what I would advise is going the other way around. Say you've got Hazard playing the Bale role, you'll have him come back on defence, etc. But this time, you'll swap Modric and Kroos back. So you'll have Modric on the right, and then you can have Bale as unbalanced on defence instead. And therefore, he can replicate that Ronaldo role. Because like I say, they're very similar. So if you are playing with this current Real Madrid side, think about that. I think that's a very good way to go about it as well. And that could definitely work in your favour. And finally, we move on to Karim Benzema, the outball, and very much a poacher in this team. First of all, you want him to stay central. That's very self-explanatory. He's got to get in between the posts. He is that poacher and that target man. And that's how he scored most of his goals, just from in the 18-yard box, an out-and-out poacher all around. And to complement that, with him being the out ball, you want him to stay forward as well. Also, of course, he is going to come into your own half during defensive situations, but he's not going to be tracking back, and bedding in with the midfield. He's very much going to be that outlet when you are looking to, to counter or for him to hold up the ball. And in terms of attacking runs, I think you should change this to target man rather than false nine. Now, he can play that role and he can drop off and stuff and add an extra body to the midfield. But why you want this on target man is because, like I say, you're going to lose that emphasis on him being that poacher, and that man in the 18-yard box. So you're going to be dropping off a little bit too much. And whilst he still will get into those advanced areas at times, he's not going to be as much as if he's a target man. So if he's a target man, you're still going to have that option because he's going to be playing in front of the defender with his back to goal. And he'll be, looking for possession and with his asking for his ball to feet. But, like I say, he'll get into more of those advanced areas, and he will be there to sort of receive any sort of 18-yard box, loose balls, etc., and on the end of any opportunities. So the target man role is very much suited to him in this situation. So that's it for the player instructions. We're now going to move on to the team tactics, and I'll walk you through how it works. So in terms of defense, first of all, you want to change this to press after possession loss. Very much not a constant pressure type tactic, and they didn't rely on an extreme press. Like I've already sort of alluded to earlier in this video, this system is underrated, and Zidane was underrated for his sort of defensive emphasis. So if you press after possession loss, of course, you've still got that sort of forward-thinking mentality, because as soon as you lose a ball, your team's going to be counter-pressing and, attempting to win the ball back. But after a few seconds, should it not come, then they'll bed in, and get narrow and get back into their positions, 10 men behind the ball, and then they'll go again. They'll look to win the ball, to play, be calm, patient, wait for the opposition to make a mistake, and then they'll go. So press after possession loss very much replicates the way it was, during those times. In terms of defensive width, you want to move this down to 3. It was a very narrow and very compact system, and the reason why a lot of people in terms of defense go so narrow is because it's a lot harder for teams to play around you than play through you. If you go narrow, it's very hard for teams to play through you. There's not a lot of space, not a lot of holes in between each of your players and the personnel, so then they've got to go around. And then if you've got to go around, let's say you're whipping balls in, then you've got to get past Ramos and Varane, very tall, commanding players in the air. And therefore it's a lot harder for you, and you've got to have someone who's very, very good, or you've got to either receiving the cross or crossing it in the first place to be able to combat those situations. So as a defence, very narrow and very compact, and that sort of couples in with the depth on the defensive side of the ball as well. You actually want this on 6th, because then you're going to have more of a mid block, and that's going to complement the versatility of this system, in the sense that you can press after losing the ball, but then you're going to form back into your defensive shape, regain your shape, and then you're going to bed in and look to try and win the ball back that way. So if you have depth on 6, that should give you that sort of middle ground in between, being too active and too passive. Moving on to the offensive style of the ball now. Possession, very self-explanatory. It's a patient possession game. And again, you're looking to keep hold of the ball. Teams are going to either tire themselves out trying to win it back, or, they're going to bed off, in which case you allow space for the likes of Toni Kroos to really hurt you in those situations. So possession suits the way. And then in terms of width, you want to move this down to 4. The reason being is that then you've still got the emphasis on possession, because you're going to have players close to each other, but then with 4, you've still got the likes of Bale and Ronaldo, and also the wing backs as well, who are wide enough in the system in order to create that space when necessary. Therefore, should there not be as many options in the central areas, teams very compact, maybe they're pressing you in the central areas of the pitch, you can then shift it out wide, and then look to go around that way. And in terms of players in the box, you want to keep this on 7. The reason being is that then you've got the 3 front men in the box, and also maybe someone else such as Modric as well, sort of hovering, sometimes in, sometimes out. And usually it will be a wing back who's crossing the ball in anyway. So that will work out very, very perfectly for you. Moving on to corners and free kicks, what we always do in all of these videos is we move these up to 4. The reason being is that then you'll leave 2 men back, which is more than enough for to consider the counter attack, because the opposition will usually only ever leave 1 man back, which is kind of strange really when you think about it. They should probably leave more forward, but usually they only ever leave one man forward. So 2 men should be enough to mark him out of the game. But then it gives you more options in the box because more men have got forward. So then you can be more of a threat on the likes of corners and wide free kicks, etc. So that should work out very well. So that rounds it off then, guys. That's very much the system in place, the 4-3-3 of Zidane's first tenure, during which he won 3 Champions League. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. This has been by far the most requested since we've, well, during the last few weeks anyway. So I hope it hasn't disappointed. If you've got any questions regarding the system, do not hesitate to get at me in the comment section and let me know, and I'll be sure to answer any questions you may have. I do try and reply to as many comments as I can, so you know, do try and bear with me, but I am trying, I do assure you. If you enjoyed the video, please do leave a like, let me know you're enjoying it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Ring the bell so that you get notifications every time I upload. On that note, we are going to finish it off there. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you soon.